I think it's about time to talk about Detroit basketball again because the Pistons have been killing it and they look to be, I mean, just so far ahead of schedule compared to where I thought they would be this year. It is a really, really impressive stretch for this Pistons team, and a team that just looks ready to compete at an extremely high level on a night-to-night basis. They're probably not going to win a playoff series this season, but the fact that they're going to be in a playoff series this season is a huge step in of itself. And I think they have enough to be competitive, if nothing else. They're consistently a solid basketball team all the way around. And it's not just Eastern Conference made. Like, I think as a whole, they're just good. And it's such a massive turnaround from a team that started like 4-40 last year or something like that. It might not be exactly that, but like horrible. They were one of the worst teams in the history of the sport. And within 1 year, without like massive roster turnover, I mean, there were some key additions for sure. Guys like Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr., Malik Beasley, Ron Holland, like real contributors that were added into this rotation, no doubt about it. But they've been so good, and they've done it without really what I think a lot of people would have thought is their second best player in Jaden Ivey. Now, is he actually their second best player? I think that's arguable, but he's a real contributor, and he's a guy who's going to come back within the next few weeks anyway, and be a contributor on a team that outside of him is pretty healthy and pretty good. Like, this is a legitimate team that deserves a lot of credit for how good they've played as of late and really all season. So it starts with obviously a win tonight against the Clippers. He's got Cade has 32, 9 and 7. Another really good Cade Cunningham game. He has just played phenomenal basketball for quite a while now. If you look at their recent win streak, I will say it's not the most impressive teams. Philly, who's struggling massively. Charlotte, not great. Chicago, definitely not great. San Antonio, not great. No Wemby either. Atlanta and LA, it is, to be fair, a second night of a back-to-back after a competitive game, really high-scoring game last night, and they get the job done and win again. Like, it's impressive stuff, even if it's not the highest level of competition. And yes, the Clippers didn't have Ben Simmons or Kawhi Leonard or Norm Powell or even who else? I think there was one other name that I was missing as well. No, Zubac played, Harden played. I might be missing somebody, but overall, they're missing a few key pieces to the rotation, sure. But as a whole, it's just really impressive basketball. And again, they're 3.5 games back or up now on the 7 seed, which is a big deal. They look like they could really, not really could, just should make it out the play-in at this point and not even have to play in the play-in this year. And the amount of growth this team has shown is really impressive. And look, 6 seed means you're going to have to play one of the top 3 seeds in Boston, New York, or Cavs, and almost certainly that 3 seed will be New York. That is going to be a tough series for the Pistons if that's who they wind up getting in the first round. But they're only a game back of Milwaukee and a game back of Indiana, and I don't see a reason why they can't potentially pass one of those teams, if not theoretically both of them. If they could somehow pass both of them, that'd be really impressive, and it would give them home court advantage in the first round, which would be huge. But either way, if they can get into that 4-5 matchup, I think they have a chance to potentially win a round. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's no guarantees that the Bucks are going to be healthy, and they're inconsistent in all honesty, even through that. The Pacers are good, but not great in my opinion. Like, these are series that could be won, and a team that has played such good basketball, and it all starts with Cade Cunningham. I mean, first and foremost, he has really transformed himself as a scorer this year. He's been much more efficient from the 3-point line. Still not insane, but 63% is really, or 36% is not bad at all in 6 attempts a game, and he's 50% from 3-point range, which isn't insane. He's not the most efficient player in the league, but the efficiency's definitely gone up this year. 25.7 points per game, 9.5 assists per game. The 9.5 to 4.4 assist turnover ratio is still not quite as good as you'd love to see, but it's a lot better than where it was earlier this season. He is really, I think if you were looking at those numbers for the last month or two, which I don't have pulled up, it's probably a lot better than in terms of the assist turnover ratio. He's just been so good. He has been a superstar caliber player this year, having, I think, one of the most underappreciated years of any player around basketball. He should be an all-NBA type player this year. This is incredible stuff on a good team. And like, at the end of the day, I think Tobias Harris, look, the 3-point efficiency hasn't been there. He's not the player he once was, and I'm not sure he was ever a great player. But he's a veteran leader, a contributor on a night-to-night basis, and a valuable player. Jaden Ivey, who has been out for quite a while, is a guy who they're going to be able to add back in the mix, who's shooting over 40% from 3 this year on 5 attempts a game. And I think fitting back into a rotation that's been playing really, really well and giving them even more offensive firepower is not going to hurt. That's for sure. Tim Hardaway, inconsistent, sure, but 38% from 3. Malik Beasley having an awesome year, 42.5% from 3 on 9.4 attempts a game. Like, really, really impressive stuff across the board. And that's not to mention Asar Thompson with his rebounding and his defense and his aggression, his physicality. Look, he's not a perfect player and he's not on the level of a man right now, but he's a very, very talented young piece piece. Jalen Duren, I don't love, but I like. The efficiency is there. The defense can be a little bit hit or miss at times. Sometimes it's a little bit empty stats, but I think he's been good this year. Isaiah Stewart, despite the lack of offensive efficiency, especially, well, from the outside anyway, probably doesn't really need to think of himself as a stretch big. And to be fair, he's only shooting 0.7 threes a game, but he brings, if nothing else, tenacity as a backup center. Physicality, aggression, tenacity. Sometimes that gets out of hand, but it can be useful. There's no doubt about it. Schroeder's been bad for them, just like he was bad for the Warriors. I don't know what happened. He was great in Brooklyn and has struggled since. Be interested to see if he can get back to playing at a higher level by playoff time. If he can, that would be huge to give them a high-level backup point guard option. Fontecchio has not shot the three ball nearly as well as I thought he would this year. It's hurting his value as a 3-and-D guy. And Ron Holland has shown a lot of promise physically, but is raw for sure and not a high-level shooter in his own right. And I'm not sure he's really a rotation player in the playoffs. So, is this team young? Yes. Do they have a lot of room to grow? Absolutely. Do I like the look of the roster? 100%. Really, really impressive turnaround. Shout out to JB Bickerstaff. I think he's been a huge part of it. Has really bought in with the young group and seems like they get along well. Seems like they're succeeding as a team. And it just seems like things are really turning a corner in Detroit in a meaningful way that I just didn't think would happen this quickly. When you're one of the worst teams in NBA history and you don't get a massive influx of like star caliber talent, you don't really expect to go from one of the worst teams in the NBA history to a like legit playoff team, and a good one at that, overnight. And that's kind of what's happened this year. Look, the additions have been huge. Malik Beasley's really bought into Detroit. I think Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway, without amazing numbers at times with their inconsistencies, have been really valuable veteran leadership for this team. And everything that I heard when Tim Hardaway was in Dallas was that the players loved him. Now his dad, Tim Hardaway Sr., different story, but I don't know. I like this team. I like a lot of what they're doing. And the thing is, like, for the season, they're an average team. They're fine. 12th in defensive rating, 112.4, not bad. Offensive ratings 15th, again, right around average. It gives you a net rating of 1.1, which is, look, 14th in basketball. They're a slightly above average team. They're a good team. They are not a great team, but they have recently been a great team. And I think it is worth giving them credit for that. In their last 7 games, which they have won all in a row, they have the 4th best offensive rating basketball at a 122.7, which I believe would lead the league for the season. And again, it's not the most impressive teams, but that's really impressive. They've been that good offensively recently. And then defensively, they haven't been bad there either. 3rd best in basketball. 16 net rating is the 2nd highest in the entire sport over their past 7 games. Is the competition great? No. Are they doing exactly what you would want a good team to do against bad competition? 100%. So it's hard for me to discount that impressive of a stretch, even if it isn't the highest level competition, because that's what you want elite teams to do. And I'm not calling them an elite team, but I am calling them an extremely talented team that is playing really well. And they have a extremely talented superstar in Cade Cunningham that is a massive, massive part of everything they've been able to do this year. To finish off the season, it'll be interesting. I will say that they do have one of the hardest schedules in the Eastern Conference. Only Milwaukee, who, by the way, only a game up on them in the standings. That could be interesting. And then Brooklyn, who's kind of out of it, although they might make the play-in. New York, who's a few spots above Detroit to where they won't catch them, and Chicago, who's way too far below, have harder schedules than Detroit for the rest of the season. But at the end of the day, I mean, they're trying to pass Milwaukee in the standings. Milwaukee has a harder schedule. This team's in a pretty good spot, man. They're at a minimum, it looks like going to be the 6th seed. They have an outside shot at the 4, definitely a realistic shot at the 5. This is a real team and a good team. Are they going to win a playoff series? Again, like I said at the beginning of the video, probably not. Do I really care that much? No, and I don't think Pistons fans do either. The growth this season has been incredible, and it's incredibly encouraging for a successful future for a team that just hasn't had very much success over the past really almost couple decades at this point. We're getting up there anyway. Besides the Blake Griffin years, and there were a couple years where they made the first round of the playoffs and stuff, and it's just like, it's never been great in Detroit for a while now, and this team looks like the team that might be able to bring them back to relevancy. So with that being said, that's gonna do it for the video. I hope y'all did enjoy. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'll be back with more NBA content very, very soon, and I appreciate y'all. Peace.